BSIT and BS Zoology, Semester 2, Communication Skills. Ms. Aisha Yusuf. Today's topic is types of communication. There are many types of communication and they have been formulated on the basis of the number of people involved. For example, in interpersonal, only one person, the self, is involved. In group, we have two or more people involved, and when we talk about mass communication, it's a large and diverse audience. When communication is taking place across different levels, for example, we have information from top to bottom, or from co-workers to other co-workers. Then communication in a specific group or context. For example, we have the grapevine communication, that is gossip between colleagues or between friends. We have internal communication, we have external communication, we have public relations communication, and so on. Then, on the basis of types of encoding used for sending the message, that means what kind of method you use to encode your message that is in your mind also determines the kind of communication that you are using. Now, based on the type of encoding that you are using, we have two major types of communication, which is verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Now, simply the word verbal means through the use of words, and non-verbal means through the use of signs, symbols, gestures, etc. Now, deriving from these two very major types of communication, we have another definition of communication, which is mentioned in the book Effective Business Communications, and it is that communication is the process of sending and receiving verbal or non-verbal messages. That whenever the process of communication is taking place, the sending or receiving of the messages in human beings is either verbal or non-verbal. By verbal communication, again, as I mentioned earlier, we mean through language, and we know that language is species specific, that is, it is specific to human beings. The way that human beings use language, no other species on this planet uses language. Language is a gift of God to us, and it is the most diverse and dynamic tool of communication available to mankind. The progress in thought that man has been able to make, the ability to transfer knowledge and research across generations, the ability to make your thoughts permanent, is through the invention of language. Again, we have two other definitions of language. Number one, the sound signaling system used by man. That is, we make sounds through the system that is innately present in us, and then these sounds are symbolic of certain meanings. So this this is primarily focusing on the oral aspect, that means the use of sounds. Now, we must remember that in language, the oral form comes first. When language was invented, first man spoke language. The written form came much later. The second definition is the method of human communication, either spoken or written, consisting of the use of words in a structured and conventional way. That is, now, whether we use this method in spoken or written form, it is the use of words, which is a combination of different sounds in a proper structure. Conventional means it is used in a specific way every time. It's not used in different ways every time. So it is traditional, it is established according to a certain system. Now, the characteristics of language, we know that throughout the world there are many different kinds of languages being spoken. So, whatever the language is, all languages have these following main characteristics. Number one, you must remember that language is arbitrary. Now, arbitrary means that it is, the word itself means random. Now, this means that there is no inherent relation between the words of a language and their meanings or the ideas conveyed by them, right? So we just choose a certain combination of sounds in any language, and we establish, or we set its meaning, that this is what it means. But inherently, though, that combination of sound does not ref- uh, exactly refer to the same thing. We have, uh, chosen that code to represent that thing, and there is no reason again why a female adult human being, we called a woman in English, we call her aurat in Urdu, zan in Persian, and femine in French. So they are all, again we can see different combination of sounds, but they all refer to the same thing, that is a woman. So if had language not been arbitrary, then there would have been only one language in the world. Now, language is symbolic, which means that it consists of various sounds, symbols, and their graphological counterparts. Graphological means the alphabet, that are employed to denote some objects, occurrences, or meaning. These symbols are arbitrarily chosen and conventionally accepted and employed. Symbols हैं actually, ठीक है, words. A is a symbol for the word for the sound B for b. Now when I write my name, for example Aisha, the sound symbols represent me, right? So, and the written form Ayesha also represent the sound Aisha. So it is all, it is all conventionally accepted. Language is systematic, of course, it is not random. You have been studying language according to a certain system, according to a set pattern since you entered school. And all languages have their system of arrangements. They have a grammar, and the grammar, has rules. You know that there is a way of writing an essay. You know there is a way of greeting. There is a way of making requests. There is a way of accepting, of declining. There is a way of doing so many things, of apologizing. So basically, they say that language is a system of systems. Okay? So not, it is not, you can say, just, haphazard. It has its, every language has its phonology, its grammatical systems, and you have to follow that in order to be a good speaker of that language. Now, language is productive and creative. We know that language has the potential for creativity and productivity. That's why, creative writing is part of your English language classes. We have the structural elements of the human language. They can be combined to produce new utterances, right? So we can even formulate new words, right? And for example, now recently we know we've started using lots of mobiles. Everybody started using mobiles, and then we also see people, they are standing in a public place, they're not paying attention here, and they're on their mobile looking and browsing. Then they're sitting at a family dinner, they're not looking at each other, and they're just going through their mobiles. So recently, the linguists have invented a new word, and they call it fubbing. Fubbing, that means ignoring your friends and family in favor of your phone. So then we also have the language changes according to the needs of society. We know that new words are added, the old words they become obsolete, and then they are no longer used. Okay? For example, when I was a student, so my teacher used to tell me that a long time back the word garden was unacceptable in standard academic English, but now it is acceptable. Similarly, the word gay used to refer to a certain type of activity and behavior, but now it is an obsolete word, no longer used. Now, language is social, is used for cultural transmission. Language is a set of conventional communicative signals used by humans for communication in a community. Language, in this sense, is a possession of a social group. Again, basically, we use language to communicate with one another and other people in a society. So it is, you know, the also language is a very important part of any society's cultural heritage, its traditions. So and it is also used for cultural transmission. So it is, in that sense, it is a social institution of any and a very important part of any society. And we know that as societies change, the use of language also changes. Now let's take the example of English. Now we know that English has many varieties. We have got the British variety, we've got the American variety, the Australian English. Now we also have the Pakistani English. And when we study the novels written by the Pakistani writers in English, we have so many words that are that are very specific to our society. For example, dholki, and so many mehndi and all these other things which are being used in English by Pakistani writers. So again, the language also is a very important tool to understand the culture and the tradition of any society. Duality refers to the two systems of sound and meaning. Basically, language has to be studied at two different levels. The sound, the sounds of a certain language, right? And the meaning of what these sounds they mean. For example, let's say studying the sound system of any language, हम किरत, we try to learn how to recite the Quran. Now that is, we are only concerned with the kirat, how to recite the Quran, the correct pronunciation. उस पे जितने भी वो the kind of जितने भी वो लगे होते हैं, punctuation and all that, because we are not non-native speakers of Arabic in Pakistan. So we learn how to read and how to pronounce it correctly. But once, many of us who don't know Arabic, once we are reciting the sound of the words, we don't know its meaning. So studying of meaning, studying the grammar, which word is noun, which word is verb, which word means this, which word is present tense, which word is that, which the Islamic scholars know about it. I think many of us who don't know the basic of Arabic grammar, etc., we cannot. Now, displacement means the ability to talk across time and space, and we know that when we people who have passed away, we can still read their work or their thoughts, because it has been stored permanently in language. For example, Shakespeare died, so many centuries ago, and today we are also, his work is safe and we can still read it. So then again, the last is humanness, means it is languages is species specific, you can say. Humanness is, or it is exclusive to human beings. I mean, the way that this kind of language systems that we human beings have now invented and we are the way that we are using it, no other species, that is no other animal on this planet is using it. So I hope you are clear now. Language has many other characteristics as well, but these are the 8 main or the major characteristics which helps us to understand uh, it. Now, importance of language. Now, girls, may I ask you a question? Do you think language is important? Do you think language is important? Now, right from the beginning, whatever you were studying, science, you were studying Urdu, you were studying arts, you were, it was compulsory for you to study English language. Now, do you think there is any use of it? Now, my answer is yes, because language gives you the ability to think, and in any field that you are pursuing, it is that tool which opens up the closed doors of your mind. And in fact, there are many researches that suggest that the higher the vocabulary of a person, the higher the IQ level of that person. You see, your words, which you can convey through language, is the only way which is you can tell the other person the amount of knowledge that is stored inside your brain. So there are many important functions of language. You express emotions, you give information, directions, instructions, you preach through language, you make aware. Language is a bridge between your inner world and your outer world. It's a cheap channel of communication. You are not being, every minute of when you are using your sound system you are not being charged anything. So it's a means of persuasion. You can only persuade through words, through language. So basically, you can divide. One is the informative function of language. That means the primary function of a language is to communicate any information. Expressive is when your feelings and your emotions, your attitudes, you're feeling angry, you like something, you hate something, you're excited, you are nervous, you are apprehensive, all these adjectives to express human emotions, are done through language. Now we also know a lot of people, they write poetry. Now poetry is a way to express your inner feelings in a better way. When we read poetry, it also evokes feelings in us. So then third is the directive function. Directive function is that it is used to put forward requests and issue commands. Directions, to give directions, orders, or to say something, put a request. Okay, so girls, I hope that in this lecture you were able to understand some of the fundamental characteristics or the basic features of human language, and then why it is important. Now for the next lecture, we will be studying non-verbal communication. Now non-verbal will be when without the use of words we can still communicate ideas, thoughts and feelings to others. Thank you girls.